great to have you here. And if you participated also in the challenge, thank you for doing so. It's been great to see the level of commitment we managed to get in this MDX challenge was really, really a very nice surprise for us. So thank you for doing so. Effectively, in this part, for me, it's going to last about 15 minutes or so. I will first summarize effectively the challenge from the start to the end. And then in the second part, we will definitely finally announce who will receive the prizes. Yeah. So effectively, I will basically run you through our impressions that we got from the challenge, or what were our expectations also when we organized it, so that that you can get an idea of our experience with it. Now, let's see if I can go through the slides. Yes, okay. Basically, our objectives when organizing the MDX challenge were mainly two. First, we wanted to bring together as many people as possible from diverse research areas. We wanted them to contribute with their own ideas that basically were coming from other research topics, and possibly that could be applied also to the topic of music source separation. So we wanted to involve as many people as possible with diverse backgrounds. We wanted them to communicate among each other, and for that, the AIcrowd website with the discussion forum was a key part for that. So that in the end, we would increase even more the interest of the community in the topic of music source separation. At the same time, also, we wanted to give experienced researchers in the topic an opportunity to do something more on source separation, which meant basically providing them with a new benchmark to evaluate their existing systems upon. And this is exactly what happened. On the one hand, we had maybe the majority of participants that were new to the topic, basically interfacing for the first time the task of music source separation. And we tried to help them by providing the starter kit, the baselines also, so that they could start from something that was already working and then improve upon that. And on the other side, some of those participants that were already experienced and already contributed a lot in the music source separation task have a new environment to improve their models upon. And a key ingredient for this last point has been our hidden test set. We call it MDX-DB21. It is composed of 27 songs that were created exclusively for the purpose of this challenge. This was created by SONY Music Entertainment Japan, and these songs were composed, arranged, recorded, mixed, and mastered exactly for this challenge. So we made it a hidden test set, so we kept it close, but it was new data for models to be tested upon. Now, let's start from the beginning. We started on May 1st, and on May 1st, we started with what we call round one. In this first period of the challenge, it's the first half of the challenge, the evaluation was run on 9 of the 27 songs of the test set. And I remember that, especially at the beginning, people were still learning how to use the submission system. They were kind of fighting against, let's say, the timeout, also the evaluation system that we provided. So there was kind of a kickstart period where participants were trying out things, basically succeeding at a certain point when they managed to make their first successful submission. And at the end of round one, which coincided with June 13th, we asked for your feedback on the challenge. And thank you all to all of those who gave us some feedback on how it was going and how what were the main disadvantages of the current formulation. Thanks to you, we managed to start round 2 with an improved evaluation system. We made the timeout dependent on the song length and this sort of things. So hopefully we managed for round 2 to give you kind of the best possible experience for the challenge itself. And in round 2, the evaluation then was run on 18 of the 27 songs, not 9 anymore, so that you participants could also see how well your models were generalizing over the test set. Round 2 was kind of a more, I don't want to say interesting, but it was more exciting, because at the end of round 2, we were basically deciding the final scores. So especially at the end of round 2, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen a growth in the number of submissions per day. You were testing as many models as possible, as many hyperparameters as possible. This has been really great to see. This has ended then on July 31st, where we closed the challenge effectively, and any submission done after July 31st would not be considered anymore for the prizes. Still, that doesn't mean that the challenge has ended. You can still submit your models. What we call here a round 3. It's technically not a round, but the submission system is still open, so you can still improve your models if you want to. This time, the evaluation will be run on the whole test set, so on all the 27 songs. And right in July 31st, we started then computing the final scores on the whole test set, and on August 2nd, we announced the final scores with the final leaderboards on the AIcrowd's website. This is something you already know. I will basically show you again the final leaderboards today, but it's nothing new. So we plan to basically keep the evaluation system up and running for a long time. This is to give you effectively the chance to further improve your models and test different things on it. Right. So we had 2 leaderboards, as you well know. One was for systems trained exclusively on MuseDB18, which is kind of the reference training data set for music source separation on 4 instruments. And our objective for leaderboard A was to gather systems that could be compared with the existing literature. So even though the evaluation was run on kind of a new benchmark, those systems can still be compared with the existing systems in the papers and in literature. On the other hand, we didn't want to constrain you too much, so we also have leaderboard B, where we didn't give you any limitation. You could just train with any data you may have had, and there the objective was really to see how good can you be, how good scores can you achieve on our test set. And we have seen that. I mean, in both leaderboards, we have seen an improvement in the total scores with respect to, in leaderboard A with respect to the literature, and in leaderboard B we have seen a really nice score for the very first positions. So let's take a look now at the final leaderboards. This is exactly the situation that you can see on AIcrowd's website if you go and check out the final leaderboards for the challenge itself. You can still also access on their website the updated leaderboards with the updated scores of all the submissions that have been run after July 31st. This that you see here is the situation that we used to basically determine then who would win the challenge. So at the end of July 31st. We see that the user Defossez, this is Alexandre from Facebook AI, achieved a 7.32 decibels of SDR averaging over all instruments, which is an impressive score for a system trained only on MuseDB18. Second place goes to the Korean University team with 7.23 decibels. This is very close to first place. And then third place is Music AI with 6.8 dBs, a little bit far away from the second place, but still a very impressive score. And instead, if we go to leaderboard B, we have the first place occupied by AudioShake, which is a small company in the US, with an impressive, a stunning 8.32 decibels of SDR. Right followed by, again, Alexandre Defossez in second place with an 8.1 dBs, and the Korean University team in third place for 7.3. Okay, this is basically a summary of what happened in the challenge. Now, before going to the second part of my presentation, where I will announce who will receive the prizes, I have still one slide. Basically, the reason why we are announcing the prices today, and they are different from the situation in the leaderboard, is that some of the top participants in the leaderboard refused the prices in order not to release their source code. So this is the reason why we have kind of a different situation with respect to leaderboards and prize recipients. Now, before again announcing the prize recipients, I have some special thanks to make to some people that particularly supported the creation of the challenge. We want to basically show our gratitude to first of all the organizers of ISMIR 2021. This is because you may not know this, but the MDX challenge is a satellite event of ISMIR 2021. That means that in November, there's going to be a whole day workshop for the Music Demixing Challenge, where we will have speakers and presentations about music source separation, both from people that participated in the challenge and from external people. And we still have to officially open the submission systems. If you want to have a talk in the workshop, we will do it soon, but feel free to send us your extended abstract if you have something interesting to talk about. This is a great opportunity to reach out a lot of people. Then we would like to thank also Deezer. They allowed us to use their open source splitter model for music source separation as a baseline for the challenge. The same happened with Woo-Sung Choi. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. If not, I'm sorry. He gave us his Lightsaft model, also used as baseline. Then we've had Alexandre Defossez gave us Demux, and we used it also as baseline for Leaderboard B as well. And finally, Ryosuke Sawata-san from SONY Tokyo. He gave us his CrossNet XUMX for baseline again. And we also want to thank Manuel Pariente. He made a nice job making sure that that baseline could also appear in his open source separation framework Asteroid. Okay, now let's look at the prize recipients. This is the moment. Unfortunately, I don't have any drum rolls or any music to play in the background. Sorry about that. So we will have to go as it is. So let's start with Leaderboard A, sorry. So I'm happy to then give the bronze medal in Leaderboard A for the Music Demixing Challenge 2021 with a price of 500 Swiss francs, achieving an SDR of 6.65 decibels, to the team Kazane Ryo no Danna. This is a two-user team. They basically, their submission is blending effectively 3 models, not just 2. And they have a presentation, I think, afterwards. So I will not spoil anything, but this is an interesting solution. So congratulations, guys, very well deserved. Then let's move on to the silver medal in Leaderboard A, with a prize of 1,000 Swiss francs and an SDR song of 7.23 decibels. We have the team KUIELab, Korean University Intelligence Engineering Laboratory. Congratulations, guys. Again, this is a 2 members team. They blend TFC-TDF and Demux model, and they also add a small mixer network at the end. So I will leave that for their presentations afterwards, but also a very nice achievement. I want to pinpoint the performance on vocals. This 8.9 is really impressive. So congratulations, guys. And then we have the gold medal in Leaderboard A with a prize of 3,500 Swiss francs and an SDR of 7.32 decibels. This goes to the user Defossez, Alexandre. Congratulations, he improved his Demux model. He made it. He calls it a Demux++, and we have a pre-recorded presentation by him as well. So again, I will not spoil anything. Congratulations, very well deserved. For this one, I want to point your attention to the performance on bass and drums. Both are higher than 8 decibels. So again, this is really, really impressive. Now, let's go to leaderboard B. We start again with the bronze medal for leaderboard B. This is again 500 Swiss francs, achieving a score of 6.68 decibels on average over instruments. We have the team ByteMSS. This is a single member team, _lighter. He blend open and mix trained on modern MusicDB 18 and TFC3F for vocals. So congratulations, ByteMSS. Unfortunately, he cannot be here today, I think, but thank you very much for participating, and it's really impressive what you achieved. Then silver medal for the leaderboard B with a prize of 1,000 Swiss francs and an SDR average over instruments of 7.37 decibels. We have again the Korean University team with their blending of TFC3F and Demixing. Congratulations, guys. And then finally, we have the gold medal with a prize of 3,500 Swiss francs, again, with an SDR of 8.11 decibels. Again, we have the user Defossez, Alexandre, with his Demixing++ model. Congratulations, very well deserved. And here we have the kind of a overview of the situation with the scores and the prize recipients. Congratulations, guys. I think we can turn on all our mics and make a actual applause. Yes. Okay, again, congratulations. Thank you for participating from us. It's been really great to see all these contributions. Now I hand back to Vrushank for the rest.
All right. Congratulations, everyone. And we have the KUIELab and Kazane team here on the call. So, well, I think we should at least talk to them. Hi. Congratulations. Why don't you go, Chenyun? Hi. It seems that his video has frozen. I'll go to KUI. Busum. Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Hi.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'll actually hand it over to Fabian. I wonder if he has some questions.
Well, of course, I have not seen. So first, congratulations. I have not seen your presentation, so I'm not sure how many questions we have in the beginning now. Maybe you can just share 1 or 2 words about what was your main motivation of trying to win the challenge, and then I mean, obviously you took a lot of effort and work on it. Maybe you can just share 1 or 2 sentences, each of you. What was your main motivation, and if you liked the challenge compared to, I guess some of you are more familiar with writing papers or like doing other kind of work. So maybe you can just say 1 or 2 words, and we have more questions later after everyone has their presentations.
Who first?
You can go.
Okay. First of all, I'm very honored to win this prize, and honestly, it is very challenging that make a perfect balance between the trade-off of between the size of the model and the performance and the time limitation. So for us, it is very challenging to meet the time limit, and yeah, it was, yeah, we should reduce our model size, and yeah, that was very difficult. Anyway, it's very good experience for us. So thank you very much for the organizations, and yeah, I'll have a presentation later. Yeah.
I think we can go to Kazane team then. Fabian, you can ask the same questions to Kazane team.
Yeah, so maybe you can first congrats, and you can maybe share 1 or 2 words. Maybe also what was the most frustrating experience with the challenge, except for trying the model fit into the time limitations, but maybe your experience on this.
Chinyan, you would have to unmute yourself.
Okay, it's to talk about the experience to a challenge, right? Okay, I think this challenge is really interesting, and I have never tried source separation before. My research topic was used to be multi-pitch estimation. So it's a complete another kinds of task. So I think it's really interesting, and we really push the limits to do our best. So I think it's a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
Awesome, well, congratulations. So we move on to the next stage of the town hall, where we'll actually a series of presentations. I think this is going to be the overall chunky part of the town hall, and we should waste too much time, I think, unless somebody has any questions if they'd like to ask. So feel free to use the chat in Zoom, and feel free to even use the Q&A feature that we have here to keep your questions coming in. This is an open kind of a room, so feel free to raise your hand, ask your questions or anything as much as you'd like. So we'll start with the first presentation in a series of presentations, and that's from the ByteMSS team. Hey guys, do you want to take over the stage?
So let me share my screen.
Perfect.
Moment.
That's okay. That's okay.
Oops, something went wrong.
Are you not able to share your screen? That should be possible.
So please with me for several seconds.
It's okay. We can wait a bit.
Sorry, so sorry about that. Okay, here we go. So hi guys, see my screen?
Yep, we can see.
Okay, let's start. First, I would like to thank for this great challenge. I would like to thank the organizer for your hard work. I'm Hao He. I'm a team member of our ByteMSS team. I'm a PhD student at the Ohio State University, and it's my great honor to share our work. Okay. The ranking of our work is the second place in vocal separation, and fifth place in the overall score. So our model have pretty good performance on vocal separation. For us, the motivation is mainly first, I think it is to compare our latest research with the state of the art, and also it's a chance to know about our source separation community and communicate and learn from each other. I think it's a great chance for us. Here I list some of my model strategies. First, we use dedicated models for our system, which means we train one model for each source. And our architecture is UNet-based, so it mainly works on frequency domain, and it combines magnitude estimation as well as the phase estimation. And in order to increase the inference speed, we use rectangular window to avoid overlap and use multi-threading to speed up computations. And this is the overview of our system. It's a formulation. It's a very typical formulation in source separation, I think. First, the input mixture is a time sequence signal. We first do a subband decomposition using sub function, and then we compute the subband STFT. So this capitalized mixture is input to our model. And our model have 4 predictions. One is mask, the second one is residue, and the other 2 is the phase variation estimations. The mask is used for, it is very typical edge ratio mask, and the residue is used to compensate other parts of the magnitude spectral one. Because the edge ratio max is not always within the range of 0 and 1, it do have value greater than 1. So that's the residue means. And we calculate the phase angle variation using the two, using the PI and PJ, and calculate the final output source using inverse STFT and subband synthesis, this sub. Yeah. And this is our overview of our architecture. The input is the subband mixture STFT, and output has 4 parts, which has mask, residue, and 2 phase estimation. The input channel is 8, which is 2 multiplied by 4 channel multiplied subband number, and the output channel is 4 times of the input channel. 4 times means 4 parts of the output. And this is a detailed architecture. It's composed of a series of convolutions. For vocal track, we use a pretty deep residue net, which have 265 layers of CNNs. And for other track, we use 137 layers of CNNs. It's a pretty deep architecture. And this is our score improvement for every successful submissions. First, let's look at the vocal score. After the competition, I found the final score is even lower than our first submission. We've got to check our first submission at the end of the competition. But anyway, this shows our models still have room for improvements. And the first model we submit is even smaller than the final one, which have only 137 layers of CNNs. Yeah, and we calculate, and for the loss function, we use simply the L1 loss in time domain. We didn't spend too much effort on vocal track. And for other track, we tried several strategies, several tricks to improve this track. First one, we try a deeper model, and surely it's improved the score. And secondly, we tried multi-source joint training, which means we use one model to predict several sources and calculate their loss together, instead of just predict one source and calculate their loss. We found this training scheme is beneficial for other track. So this can improve the SDR for about 0.2. And then we tried a pretty crazy idea. We use the mixture minus vocal bass drum as the other track, and clearly the score dropped drastically. And then we try the third tricks. We separate. Previously, we separate others from the mix directly from mixture, afterward we tried separate other from mixture minus vocal, which means separate from accompaniment. This surprisingly can improve SDR. Yeah, this is for the other track. For drum and bass, I think maybe the CNN-based UNet model is not very specialized, cannot perform well on these two sources. So we directly use Demixing, the open source Demixing for these two sources. And our code, pre-trained model and training pipeline is open source on GitHub. So welcome, welcome to use our code. Yes, thanks for listening.
Oh wow, that's wonderful. So, you know, maybe do drop the link in the chat maybe to your open source code.
Sure.
And if anybody has any questions or something, you know, any comments, this is the time.
Hello, I have a question.
Hi.
Yeah, hi, thanks for the presentation. You mentioned your sub-band decomposition. Can you tell us what bands? Like you said, 4 frequency bands?
Yeah. We use 4 frequency bands. That is, we first use 4 analysis filters to do sub-band decomposition, as well as 4 downsampling. And we calculate STFT on the 4 sub-band signals. Yeah.
All right, cool, thank you. And the frequency, anyway, it's cool. I'll check your GitHub repository. Thanks for the link.
Okay, sure.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Howard. And thanks a lot, ByteMSS team for making this great presentation. We'll move on to the next participant, and that is the KUIELab. Hi, Wusun. Do you want to go? Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Finish the slide. Okay. So I am Usong Choi, and yeah, I participated in this challenge with Min-Seok Kim, and both of us work at Intelligence Engineering Lab at Korea University. So we named our model as KUIELab MDXNet. I know it is difficult for pronunciation, but anyway, after our lab's name. And this is the timeline for developing our models. So since 2019, our lab has developed source separations or source-aware audio manipulation. And as you can see, the main approach of our model was from our previous work, which is called TFC-TDF UNet. And the baseline was light version of the last net, and we got 20th place on leaderboard A and 22nd place on leaderboard B, which is quite inferior to this model. So today's presentation is about this model. So the background, before describing our main approaches, I will briefly introduce the TFC-TDF UNet, our previous work. And yeah, we'll skip this part. And I think you guys might be familiar with this concept, so I will skip this too. So if you assume that a spectrogram is nothing different from an image, which has only 2 channels, and then we can view spectrogram-based source separation as an image-to-image translation. So this is the early method based on that approach. Was from ISMIR 2017. And this they adopt a fully convolutional models, just like in image translation models for source separation. So empirically, fully 2-dimensional convolution can provide promising results, but in fact, well, spectrogram is not an image. So based on that observation, we developed our model. So this is 2 long slides, so I will briefly summarize the 2 slides. So in a nutshell, we have to capture frequency patterns observed here, the vertical axis. So we have to capture these patterns for timbre analysis of the target instrument. So we thought that a fully 2-dimensional convolution neural network is not enough for source separation. So to efficiently capture those patterns in spectrogram, so we added fully connected layers like TDF, which is called TDF, and in a densely connected 2-dimensional convolution, which was first adopted in MM-dense LSTM SONY, or not LSTM, MM-dense net. So we added this fully connected layer right after then the TDFC, densely connected convolutions. So it improves the SDR score. And the thing is that this large block is called the TFC-TDF. That is why we named our net TFC-TDF. Again, it is difficult for pronunciation. But anyway, this is the unit architecture, and we used for intermediate blocks, we use this block. So it improves adding TDF to the unit structure for spectrogram-based source separation. It improves the SDR performance. So this is the performance evaluation on MuseDB18 benchmark, and our model achieved state-of-the-art performance for vocal source separation and other separation, not for the drums and bass. So the visualization of the weight matrix of a single layer TDF shows why it works. So you can see the red or blue lines here. It is very similar to this line, and this line is means that this kind of harmonic patterns observed in the frequency axis. So it means that it can capture harmonic patterns observed in the frequency axis, and it means that it is good for timbre analysis. So we extend it for multi-source separation in ICASP 2021, which is named LossUpNet. And as you can see, it is too long for presentation LossUp, so I will briefly introduce it in this slide. Well, the things that it uses a lot of TDFs in a block. So to capture frequency patterns of latent source within a single instance, so which requires an expensive computational overheads. So we what we tried in the beginning of the challenge is that we tried to improve LossUp. I'm sorry, it is NAT LossUpNet, but it failed to meet the time limit. So that is why I said that it was very challenging to meet the time limit. So instead, we gave up this approach, and then we go back to the previous approach, TFC TDF unit, and then we improve it instead. So our approach is to basically, the most challenging part was, again, the balancing of balance the trade-off between size and the response time. And to achieve this, we make each block is lighter than before, but instead we stack more blocks and we added 2 additional layers. So and we used cutoff tricks to use high resolution in terms of frequency. So for example, we used a big NFF of this big, very big, and then we cut off the useless frequencies for base source separation. So we does not use this portion, and only fed this part into our models. So that is our first approach. And then the mixer is a very small model. We thought that this kind of additional network on top of the estimated sources could force the 4 estimated sources, vocal, drum, bass, and other, to compensate each other. So this is very small network on top of the each TFC TDF unit. So that is mixer. And the last thing is blending. We blend heterogeneous models. The first one is our models, and the other is Demux. So our observation is that our model is good at separating harmonic instruments such as vocals and other. And of course, bass is a harmonic instrument, we know that, but it is more like a rhythm instrument. There's compared to other instruments, it has a limited frequency pattern. So, well, in that case, our model is not good at separating rhythm instruments. So we mix the separated result with different ratio per sources. So, for example, 0.4 of TFC TDF unit and 0.64 Demux output. So that is blending of heterogeneous models. And yeah, so the general impression of the challenge is, first of all, thank you very much for the organization of this great challenge, to both organizers and AIcrowd. And I think it's very important it is very good for researchers like us to use that private test data set. And I think it's very hard. It was very hard for collecting that data set, that valuable data set. And they AIcrowd provides very practical environment. There is a time limit in a controlled environment, and that is very unique system evaluation system I've ever experienced. And it was very fresh to me. It is very developer friendly submission system via Git protocol. So it was very fresh. And I think it would be better if, well, the mobile website is if instead of the WAV file, if the website provide MP3 instead, and then it would be much efficient for mobile users. And then submission system may be difficult for someone. The developer is okay for that job, but it might be very difficult for someone. And maybe enabling GPU provide much more abundant experience. And then I think there, if they provide Oracle benchmark, and then it would be very great. Yeah. And yeah, thank you very much. And this slide, I will share this slide links in the text. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Bhushan. And we appreciate your comments, specifically with regards to AIcrowd as well. I think we'll take this feedback to improve our old website. If anybody has any comments or questions to share, go ahead. All right, okay, it seems we don't have anybody sharing any questions right now. That's okay, we can move on to the next presentation. So over to you, Sevag.
Okay, hello. Hi.
Yep, we can see your screen.
We can see this, great. I'm glad we heard from people near the top of the leaderboard, and I'm also happy to be invited from somewhere near the bottom of the leaderboard, actually. But I think my approach has some nice ideas. I'd love to share it with you. So I'm going to talk to you about XUMX Slice Q, which was my submission to the Music Demixing Challenge. So who am I? I have an electrical engineering background. First time I ever did signal processing was in school for electrical engineering. I'm a Linux engineer at Pandora, the US music streaming service, but I don't do any music intelligence over there, just infrastructure. I like working on open source projects on GitHub. And I'm a student right now in a Master of Arts Music Tech program at McGill. It's a lab called Distributed Digital Music Archives and Libraries by Professor Ichiro Fujinaga. People there don't really do music demixing. This was more of a personal interest for me. So why did I participate in this competition? Really, a year ago, I think, I saw the median filtering harmonic percussive source separation algorithm of Derry Fitzgerald. I really love this algorithm. It's so simple. The paper is very nice to understand. It doesn't perform very well, but it also doesn't take a lot of GPU power to train. It's very basic algorithm. And since seeing this algorithm, I've been fascinated by music demixing. So to describe my approach, I want to talk about some improvements that have been made to HPSS. So the well-known limitation of the short-time Fourier transform is that the window size is actually very important. And specifically in music demixing, different targets benefit from different window sizes of FFT. For example, we just saw in the previous presentation, bass benefits from a very long window size for a fine frequency resolution. And we can have some quotes here from different music researchers. For musical and auditory aspects, we should have a frequency resolution that's high at the low frequency region and low at the high in the high frequency regions, and the opposite for time resolution. Or stated otherwise, we want to use long windows in the low frequencies and short windows in the high frequencies. Because in the low frequencies, we have all the harmonic basses, the bass notes, the vocals. And in the high frequencies, we have transients, attack, timbre, percussion, rhythm, all this interesting stuff. So one improvement to HPSS is the dual STFT HPSS, which used like a larger window for the harmonic separation, smaller window for the percussion. Another variant of HPSS replaced the STFT with the constant Q transform in some cases. And the constant Q transform, just like these other 2 points mentioned, it uses long windows in the low frequencies and short windows in the high frequencies. And it was designed actually by Judith Brown originally to show the relationship of the fundamental frequency and its harmonics in a more clear way. So I have some diagrams here of the STFT compared to the constant Q transform. So we'll notice some things, some well-known facts of the Fourier transform, of the short-time Fourier transform. With a small window, we have very sharp temporal localization. We can see when note onsets happen, but we have blurry frequencies. We don't really know the precise frequency that's occurring. As we increase the window size, we get better frequency discrimination, but the time becomes blurry. And we should note, like 4096, this is the window size of the FFT used in Open Unmix. And like right in this little region here, it's even missing some of these frequencies that you can see in all the other transforms. If you look at the constant Q transforms here at the bottom, in every case, you have low frequency resolution, high frequency resolution, but in general, you can see more temporal events and you can see more harmonic frequency events. So this is where my hypothesis kind of intuition came from. If we can use a spectrogram that has more musical information inside it, can we improve demixing systems? So I start with the slice Q transform. This is based on the non-stationary Gabor transform. Just to describe, who is Dennis Gabor? In fact, he created the first published use of the short-time Fourier transform in his paper in 1946. STFT was also discovered independently, but now it's understood to just be general Gabor transform theory. The slice Q transform is the real-time version of this transform. What are these transforms? They are essentially STFT-like transforms with windows that vary with time. Instead of having a fixed size window, we can change the window in different parts of the signal. And the constant Q transform was the motivation for the non-stationary Gabor transform or the sliced constant Q transform. But in reality, you can use any monotonically increasing frequency scale. You can have the Mel scale, Bark, logarithmic, constant Q, variable Q, erblets. The literature is exhaustive. It outputs very familiar Fourier coefficients. And in each case, there's a perfect inverse. Unlike the well-known CQT in LibRosa, which is based on a paper from 2010, Clapoury, Shorkuber, has a little approximate inversion error. With the slice Q transform, we don't have this inversion error. It's always perfect inverse based on frame theory. So my competition goal was to shove the slice Q inside open unmix, see what happens. These are the actual parameters I used in my final neural network. 262 frequency bins on the Bark scale with these frequency limits, 32.9 hertz to 2250. It's such an enormous range of parameters that I only found one, but I'm sure other researchers can find better things to do with this transform. So what does my actual neural network look like? It's called XUMX slice Q. It starts from open unmix, the PyTorch template on GitHub. It incorporates XUMX ideas, crossnet open unmix for the 4 models in one place with the mixed loss. Uses this PyTorch enabled fork of the slice Q non-stationary Gabor transform. And the most important thing is the STFT is replaced with the slice Q transform. And ultimately, I actually replaced the bidirectional LSTM with some convolutional models that I borrowed from a Grace and Plumlee paper, 2019. Just very, I want to actually, let me go to this slide first. So I was position 34 in the leaderboard. I don't think it's a big deal. I had a very luck-based approach. I'm not a really data-driven. Machine learning and deep learning are my weak points. I truly believe that I invite everyone to take a look at this slice Q transform. It's very interesting. I think if you design a sort of more intelligent network architecture, if you do better parameter search, I'm sure you'll achieve a lot of success. I'm excited about the transform. I think XUMX slice Q is just one example of a working neural network with this transform. Sorry for jumping slides, but I want to describe actually the most important thing of what worked versus didn't work. So this is kind of what the slice Q transform looks like. A little bit simplified, but we take a frequency scale, a kind of artificial one I created, 10 hertz, 30 hertz, 80 hertz, 150 hertz, that these all have the same time frequency resolution. And then the next two, and then these are kind of alone. And we notice the higher frequencies are isolated in their own bands. There is a matrix form. It chops these in the middle, moves the back half to the other side of the matrix, puts zeros right in the middle. And to use that as the input to the neural network did not work for me at all. My DB score was always 0 or below, like in negatives. Until someone in my lab suggested to me that, if you're using a convolutional kernel and it's learning from one kind of temporal frame rate in this frequency region, and the kernel slides here and it has 0 padding inside it, it makes no sense. How can this kernel learn any, reasonable weights with 0 padding? So the important insight for me to go from a 0 score to at least, +4 SDR was to use the ragged form. And I take a list of tensors and I apply these convolutional layers inside each time frequency block. And that got me somewhere decent. Like I mentioned, I don't think it's as high as this transform can go. So please, I hope other people work with the slice Q transform. I'm very excited about this transform. Finally, my impressions on the competition. I agree with what the top winner posted in the discussion board. Was a great environment to push the limits, and I would have definitely given up. sooner if it weren't for the competition. It took me maybe 1 month to do like stuff that had negative dB until I figured out how to move into the positive range. So a very, very motivational environment. There was active discussion on the boards. My questions were answered. Everything was great. I loved the GitLab submission process. I was surprised. I don't normally have a good time with Conda and pip and all this mess on my own desktop computer. So that it kind of just worked on GitLab was very great. And I really look forward to the 2022 competition. I'll probably improve my machine learning skills and try again. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Sevag. And I see people clapping in the room. This was an interesting presentation. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask or some comments?
Very nice talk. Did you try to just use interpolation to bring it to matrix form? So I mean that would blow up the representation, but did you try that?
No, I didn't. I could write that down maybe as a potential idea.
I think I've seen that in the past that people are using that also for CQTs, but only for analysis purposes.
Yeah, and it's actually far from a perfect transform. There's the slices have to have a 50% overlap that's non-invertible. So I even have an extra convolutional transpose layer at the end to double the coefficients to go from the, well, I invite others to try their luck, but I could take a look at this interpolation, yeah.
All right, if participants don't have any more questions, we'll move on to the recorded presentation from Alexandre. Let me go. Maybe just to let me know if the video is playing and if you're able to hear the sound.
I'm Alexandre Defossez, and I'm going to present my improved Demux submission to the Music Demixing Challenge. So yes, there's a lot of things to cover today, and for more details, you will have to wait for the code release and Izmir workshop submission in October. So you're all familiar with the Music Demixing Challenge. There were 2 tracks, MuseDB only, track A, and with extra training data, track B. So Demux was proposed as a baseline with 5.9 decibels of SDR, and I worked through the competition to improve it, and ranked first on track A and second on track B. The biggest change was to propose a hybrid time and frequency domain architecture based on the same principles. And that was, of course, a natural decision because Demux, while being great for bass and drums, is clearly lagging behind frequency domain methods on other and vocal sources. So the spectrogram, first I made a spectrogram version of Demux, which uses the same architecture, but the first layers in the encoder and the decoder, they are acting on frequency axis, reducing the number of frequency beans, and the innermost layer is on time axis. And the hybrid Demux, it's one spectrogram branch and one time branch. And the innermost layer is shared between the two. So it's not just combining their prediction, it's really making them able to share information. I use the complex as channels representation by Choi and Al. So each frequency is going to be represented as 2 channels for the real and imaginary part. And the loss is still in time domain using differentiable ISTFT, which means it's very easy to combine the prediction from the time and frequency branch. Another big change was to add residual branches in the encoder, so between the first and second convolution inside each layer. And each branch contained dilated convolutions, local attention, and bidirectional LSTM. The branches, they all act on a 4x smaller dimension or representation of the data. And with all that, it was possible to remove the original BLSTM that was between the encoder and decoder. So local attention, it's just typical attention, but it's based on content only, so it doesn't contain positional embedding. But it adds a penalty term that is controlled by a fully connected layer that allows to control the range on which we want to access data dynamically. I did other experiments with positional embeddings or full transformers, but they were not successful. Another thing I realized was that Demux was unstable when trained on large datasets, especially for track B, and this is due to some of the singular value blowing up, and sometimes those large singular values, they can be triggered by a single training example. So as you increase the training set size, you see this example less and less often, and yes, when it comes back, everything blows up. One easy fix is to add group norm in the innermost layer. Another fix that is more novel is to use singular value penalty, which with the larger singular value estimated with low rank SVD, and a penalty term is added on its squared amplitude. And it turns out that the singular value penalty greatly improves generalization, even if it's not sufficient for full stability. Then there were other tricks that is not necessarily that interesting, except for the realistic mixtures that is based on aligning tempo, pitch, and initial beat, and is only used for fine-tuning performance. And yes, so as a conclusion, the score was greatly improved, plus 1.5 decibel compared to baseline. So there were important architectural change, like the residual branch, and most importantly is a novel hybrid time frequency model. Now, performance is still lagging a bit behind for vocals compared to the best model, like the KUIELab one, which is at plus 1 decibel. So I'm looking forward to learning more from their methods. And interesting fact, with extra training data, the improved Demux is now over the IRM Oracle, both for the drums and bass sources. Thank you very much, and yes, please ask questions on the AIcrowd discussion forum. Bye.
All right. I've dropped the link to the forum, the thread that Alexandre opened up. It's on discourse.aicrowd.com, where if you have any questions you would like to ask him, since he's not available right now, you can drop questions to him and he can reply back to them later. Okay, we'll move on to another recorded presentation, and we have, after this we have one more presentation, and then we have an open floor and we close the town hall. I'll go with the presentation by AudioShake. Let me start.
Hi, I'm Jessica Powell. I'm the CEO of AudioShake, and we were really excited to participate this year in the challenge and come up tops on the leaderboard for the With Data challenge. We are a company that uses AI to open up songs for new uses and help artists in the music industry make more money for their work. So we work directly with artists and lots of labels and publishers and music distributors to take their songs and break them up. There's a lot of uses today for stems in things like remixes and sync licensing, but we get really excited when we think about the future of music because we think there's so many experiences that are going to be built on the back of stems that are going to allow for much greater music engagement and collaboration. And that's things like in gaming and VR and AR, social apps, things like spatial audio where you can hear the audio like all around you, but in different parts of the room. Adaptive music, where the music changes, the same song changes as you change activity, say from walking to running. And perhaps most importantly, perhaps in the future, thanks to the work of everyone in this field, we will never, ever have to karaoke to a bad MIDI cover version for karaoke ever again. The way we work is we provide an on-demand platform to our customers. They can break songs up into vocals, drums, bass, and other, just like in this challenge. We also do instrumentals and guitar. We will soon be releasing piano We're working on base synth because, as many of you know, it has very different characteristics that make it more challenging to separate using the same kind of model. We're also working on other STEM types, and overall, we're really focused on making our model faster. And with that, I'll hand it over to Luke, our CTO, who will talk a little bit more about what we did specifically on this challenge.
Hello, my name is Luke, and I'm the CTO at AudioShake. I'm going to give a little background on some of the challenges that we went through during the competition. Now, our pipeline involves distinct models for each source. And our model operates on a time-frequency representation of the mix. We also use a CombNet architecture. And although this approach is a lot, one downside is that it's very computationally expensive. So first of all, we had to decrease the size of our model just to fit within the time constraints as specified by the competition. And even then, we were getting performance that was substantially below our production model, which we weren't satisfied with. So the basic problem, or one of the basic problems, was that we were, for the competition, we were inferring a series of non-overlapping patches. And although this approach is relatively quick, we were getting worse SDR scores because the borders between the patches produce artifacts and inconsistencies. One solution to this problem would be to infer overlap patches and then average them together. However, this would entail inferring far more patches than in case A, and unfortunately, it was just too slow. Since CombNets allow for arbitrarily large patches, another solution is to input a large patch that encompasses the entire mix. So instead of having a bunch of little small patches, you just have one large 2D patch. The problem with this approach is that it uses up a lot of memory. Fortunately, we managed to make our models just small enough that we could run inference over the entire song at once. And as you can see, this gave us a nice 9% boost in the SDR scores. And here they are.
On a final note, we are hiring at AudioShake. We're looking for a senior full stack engineer and a machine learning engineer. So please get in touch if you're interested. Thank you so much to SONY and Izmir for organizing the contest, and huge congrats to the prize money winners.
All right. So that was the presentation from the AudioShake team. They are at the top of the leaderboard, although they're not claiming the prize money. So congratulations to them. We have one last presentation. Feel free to drop message to even the AudioShake team on the challenge forum if you'd like. They'll be visiting that challenge forum as well if you have any specific questions to them. Let's move on to the next team and the last team. That is the Kazane team. Hey guys, over to you.
Okay, you guys can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, can you see the slide?
Yep, we can see.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, I will start my presentation. And my name is Qingyun Yu, and in this presentation, I will talk about our findings and approach about the challenge. Okay. First thing, some introduction about ourselves. And I'm the organizer of the team Kazane Ryo no Danna. And I'm currently a software engineer at Ryo. It's a gaming company, and we do music games. And also, I also worked in Vive multimedia team before as an engineer and used to be a research assistant at Academia Sinica in Taiwan.
For me, I'm Kin Wai Chek. I'm currently a PhD candidate in Singapore University of Technology and Design.
Okay, thank you. And let's first talk about our motivation to the challenge. First, we want to try some new ideas that we haven't get a chance to do, and this challenge is really a good place to start with. And second, to get familiar with other types of MIR topics. And third, to test our limits, our knowledge and ability through this challenge. And I think most importantly, to get a prize. I think this is the same for everyone here. Yeah. Okay. And the final rank, talking about the final rank, our team got the 4th place on leaderboard A. and the 6th place overall. Yeah. Okay, and let's talk about our approach. Our final approach is blending outputs from 3 different models we have developed during the challenge. And 2 of the models use frequency maskings, and the remaining one directly operates in time domain. And we set the blending weights based on their individual score of each source. For example, we found that time domain models tends to have better score on drums and bass, so we give it a much larger weight. And these are the final values we use. Okay, let's talk in details about each model. The first one is basically a cross on mix, but with a different training method. And we made 2 changes. And first, we calculate the frequency domain mean square loss using the complex value instead of using absolute value, what they did in their original paper. And second, because cross on mix apply multi-channel winner filtering when doing inference, so we decided to incorporate this process into our training pipeline. And we found it really shows some improvements. And to do that, we even write our own Norbert package in PyTorch. I place it on my GitHub, so feel free to check it just right here. Okay, and so this models improves about 0.1 dB score compared to the official baseline.
For our second model, we try to improve UNet form splitter. So we also replace each convolution block with a DV block from DVNet. We also add 2 local attention layers as the bottleneck layer. This model achieves a SDL score of 6.03. We also experiment with bidirectional LSTM as the bottleneck layer, but the performance is not as good as the local attention layers. So I will hand over my time back to Jingyu.
Thanks. Okay, the next model, the model 3, the third model is actually Demux with some variations. One of the variation is the cropping mechanism when doing skip connections. The official implementation use center crop, and we think that it introduced some time shifting according to PyTorch documentation. So we decided to change it to crop only the end of the sequence. Another modification is that we replace the decoder by 4 smaller independent decoders. It was based on our assumption that if 4 sources use the same decoder, they might interference with each other and restrict the ability of the decoder. And we believe that with encoder and LSTM layers alone is sufficient to separate the information of each source. With these 2 modifications, this model improves about 0.2 dB score than the baseline. Okay. Okay, let's talk about our general impression. I will hand over to Kim-Wei.
Thank you. So overall, we enjoyed this competition, but we find a few things that could be improved. First, the given data loader is quite slow. In the end, we need to write our own data loader in order to prevent data loading bottleneck. Second, our submission encountered unexpected server errors when which we couldn't fix. Finally, it would be actually better if we could change our team name in the middle of the competition, because at the very beginning, we just gave ourselves a relatively random team name, but we were stuck with this name in the end. Nonetheless, people in this competition are very friendly, and we can get instant help from the support team when we face problems. So thank you for organizing this competition. We learned a lot from it.
Okay, before the end of the presentation, I would like to thank Songling, Yoode, Xiaoming, Yinjun for giving us valuable suggestions and help during the challenge. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kazane team. And I think we take your feedback. Should be able to change the team name.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So, well, we are kind of almost reaching the end of the town hall. We have one final note of thanks that Yuki can give. But I was thinking that before we get there, now this is the time, and We've had about 27 participants even since the town hall joined, and I see that almost everybody has stayed until the very end. So that's quite impressive. So it also tells that this is a group that is actually very invested and interested in what we're doing. But it would be good if we could sort of find some way to even talk it out. If anybody wants to unmute their mic and say something, feel free to do that. This is the time. We have the open floor now. Go on.
Okay, hey, if we're filling silence. So speaking as someone who, machine learning, deep learning was new to me. And I used to believe the memes on the internet, which is like, oh, you just put more layers, you're going to win automatically because it's magic. And I was like, well, yeah, it's just people doing weird layers and you use a bunch of GPU compute and they just magically get good results. It couldn't be further from the truth. I think like trying to make a network converge is the hardest thing I've ever done. I don't really feel like doing more of it. It's going to be a hard road, but yeah, like deep learning, it's obviously successful, but I don't think it's necessarily throw more layers, you'll succeed. I tried massive models, and if your assumptions are wrong, if your network's just not going to converge. So it's eye-opening to me that deep learning is not layers just work magically.
Anyone else wants to share some frustration experience? I mean, that's certainly true, and I guess one of the problems is that well, most of these models you find are tuned for computer vision, and so it's, as you discovered yourself, the front ends for audio are quite important, and even the slight mistake in these front ends can mess up your whole training and make everything not work. But yeah, so if someone else wants to share like something, otherwise I have some questions, but well, some ideas what we can talk about. So
I think I did see. Yeah, go on.
So one thing I would like to know, or maybe also Yuki, would be something you are probably interested in, is compared to MuseDB 18, like everyone was the last 5 years getting used to it. How, well, even though you've never seen the new dataset and not listened to it, obviously, can you maybe share some of the experience? How does the new dataset, like react to your models? How does it, behave? Is it somehow predictable, the changes when you make model changes, and comparing scores on maybe MuseDB 18 compared to this? Like maybe you have some experience. It would be interesting to know.
Yeah, and also thanks for the organizers. Just mentioned by Fabian, and we also found that the external data might be very helpful. So I have a question: is that what's the way of collecting more data besides the MuseDB data? So I think Fabian, you have mentioned there are 100 times larger data set than MuseDB, and so what's the source of the data, and how can we collect that kind of data?
Well, that's a tricky question. So I guess if from a commercial perspective, there's completely normal ways to acquire them, like buy them. I think there's way to license this data. Many studios have this kind of way to license that. And then, yeah, on the other hand, if you can't afford that, that's getting tricky. It's getting very tricky to get that data, yeah. Especially because there's not much open data available. Maybe you can mix like all of kind of instrumental data and karaoke data sets. You can make a huge mix of data sets. And I don't know if someone uses that kind of approach in the submission. So I think no one was actually talking about from the leaderboard B of the data. So it would still be interesting to know. But for now, I can just assume that people acquire them.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. So do you mean the music makers, when they create music, they will have separate vocals, separate bass, and separate drums, and also separate others they have on their device, but they didn't release those kind of data?
Yes.
Maybe I can add something to that. So one other option would be to sort of do an equivalent of a simulation of that data. I mean, for music producers, there are tools that manage to recreate the sound of, say, an orchestra in the computer. Yeah. And if you have those tools, then you can use them to create data which is separated from the beginning, and possibly you could use that to train a neural network. So that data doesn't have to be really recorded in a studio. It can also be synthesized on the computer. So that's also an option that is definitely more affordable than buying directly the song separated from the source. It's kind of more manageable also for a private user.
All right, I see that there's silence again in the room. If anybody has any questions, feel free to go. Or otherwise, I think Fabian, you do have questions. So
Just one last thing would be from me. So I hope you're all interested in at least participating or joining this workshop that we are going to organize. Maybe someone from you who has questions or maybe ideas, like what would your expectation be from a workshop, so that we already can get some feedback. What you want to discuss about, like that would be interesting for us, I guess.
So will the workshop be one day after the ISMIR conference?
Yes.
So are we using any like software like the ICAS? I thought they were using some town or whatever, the website based, so we can communicate face to face. So that's pretty nice. So we will have that kind of website.
Yes, we will have that as well.
That's cool.
all right. While we have a silent room, if Fabian, do you have any more questions or?
I have a few more, but maybe someone from the participants wants to also ask questions. I don't know, like for example, I would be interested in like if in the organization, I think we dropped like several baselines, and I think what we observed is that there were actually not so many people trying to just take one baseline, a single one, and improve them slightly, maybe for example with extra data. So we only saw very few in the lower part of the leaderboard, few submissions that just took one baseline and trying to do some additional fine-tuning, because otherwise we would have seen more participant and submissions that get slightly higher or lower scores around an already open source system. So maybe that would be the question. Was it sometimes too difficult to adopt existing models? Like, is it still too hard to fine tune these models, for example? Maybe especially, well, I guess those people who tried to blend the models did not have that problem, but other people have an idea about this? Or was it the time limitation?
I'll be happy to call someone out.
Right.
What about you, Chinyan? What do you think?
Me? We actually in the last weeks of the challenge, and we just try to average our two models, which are basically just the baseline with some tiny tweaks, and we found the SDR score just improved significantly, probably about half a dB, and we jumped from around 10th place to 4th place. So yeah, we found that probably blending model is a faster way to get higher score. Yeah, and you tweaking baseline, it just improve very, very, very little. Yes, this is my thought. Yeah.
I have great. I have one question. Go ahead.
I think he has some mic issues. Go on, Fabian.
I have one more question to the AIcrowd team, so to you. Maybe it's interesting also to know, like, how does the audio community, or let's say an audio-focused competition or challenge, is that significantly different for you compared to vision-based or video or NLP competitions in terms of both the participants, also the way how you see the competition evolve over time? Like, maybe you have some insights on this. Would be interesting to know.
Actually, from a technical point of view, we have Shivam as the CTO. If it'd be good to hear from him.
I think it was pretty much similar experience from how everything is structured. But I do realize, we had a lot of features which were designed especially with, something like video or images in mind. For example, just simple as, on the leaderboard, we never had a audio player. So, for in the round A, even though we wanted to have an audio player as soon as possible, it took a bit of changes on our front. But we generally have a video or, images on the leaderboard, and small things like this. So it was pretty interesting that, it was also an opener for us that, okay, we have to be more customizable on, how these type of competitions can be panned out. So it is not only, images or vision focused, but also like in different domain, including sound. So, and it obviously the community has been pretty awesome to deal with, especially on Discourse and everywhere. Like the questions are pretty much on the point. Everyone is searching on the forum before asking the same question, something like that. And it was an overall an awesome experience hosting this challenge for us all, I guess.
Yeah. And it ran as a very tight competition as well, right? So we had about 2 months and for each rounds, and we saw continuous participation from everybody who was coming in. So and especially also from the SONY team. The SONY team was also very much involved. We were very happy to see so many baselines coming in. So thank you so much for that. And we're very glad to see that a challenge like this, when it turns into kind of like a benchmark challenge where the submissions can continue, from where we stand, having something like that is very beneficial even for the AIcrowd community. So we're very glad to facilitate that. Actually, from community POV, there's another thing, and I think it relates to what you asked, Fabian. We do see some of our other participants. We have we keep seeing that there are participants who come in who participate in a particular competition. And when you have competitive competition participants, like we see on platforms like AIcrowd, we'll actually see that somebody who has participated in a challenge like music demixing challenge, they might even have participated in some NLP challenge at some point. They might have participated in a CV challenge at some point, and we'll have lots of participants like these as well, which actually tells us that it is really great to have variety in challenges like these. And at AIcrowd, we welcome interesting challenges like these. So that's great. It is also beneficial to the AIcrowd community. All right, we do have one question in the chat. I'm not sure if anybody saw it. I'll speak it out verbatim because it seems that person doesn't have their mic on their PC. They're asking, did anyone find any benefits from augmentation methods or altering data loading approaches? Can anyone talk about the scale of their private datasets? Would anyone want to jump in? Well, if not, I'll be happy to call out someone's name.
And we tried it pitch-based augmentation, and we mixed some different tracks from different sources from different tracks, and we mixed it, and yeah, that kind of augmentation. And I think that that approach was based on previous SONY and a recent paper published by Dr. Defossez about the pitch-based augmentation or stretching the track to make the slower audio or fast audio. So that kind of augmentation does improve the performance of the source separation, I guess. I think maybe every top ranked participant already used it. Yeah.
All right. Okay, thanks a lot, Usum. I'll finally now hand it over to Yuki. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Yuki from SONY. Should I go quick? I noticed that many of the listeners already left this session, but there are 2 and 20 panelists. So, and to everybody who watches this video after this event, and on behalf of the MDX organizers, let me make closing remarks. I believe it won't take too long.
By the way, Yuki, I promoted everybody to panelists. That's why you see less people in attending.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. So please allow me to speak a little bit about the history of MDX. We don't have a long history, but and the link between MDX and the SISEC. I'm not sure whether you heard of this name. So SISEC is the abbreviation of Signal Separation Evaluation Campaign. And the first event was organized very long ago, more than 10 years ago. And since then, several tasks were run, and music separation task has always been one of the most popular tasks. And the last SISEC was organized in 2018. And after the event, I joined the SISEC team, and I was asked to lead SISEC. And the SISEC team had been exploring ways to make music separation tasks more attractive, not only to the audio community, but also to more, how can I say, general machine learning people. And we came up with the idea to collaborate with the AIcrowd team. And we, after that, or before that, I forgot, but we decided to call the event Music Demixing MDX Challenge, in order to highlight that the MDX is not only an academic evaluation campaign like SISEC, but also a machine learning competition to gather many people, to attract many people. And another thing we tried was to collect fully hidden test set for evaluating submitted systems. And the aim was to avoid using a test set as a training set. And this was accomplished by not collecting a data set, but asking our group company called SONY Music to create a professional music from scratch. And as a result, SONY Music managed to compose and record, mix, and master, and finalize 30 songs in total. And we could organize the first edition of MDX Challenge in June. yeah, maybe. and even though we were confident with the new platform and the dataset, I was still unsure if the MDX event could end with a success. But today I can see many faces here interested in this event, satisfied, hopefully, with this event. And I finally feel that we did something great and could contribute to the community. So last but not least, let me thank all the people here, also people not here, Many thanks to participants, AIcrowd, ISME organizers, MDX organizers, SONY Music, and my colleagues. Yeah, maybe that's all. And thank you for listening my talk, and see you at the next MDX challenge. Big congratulations to winners. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuki. Thank you so much.